Just Space for Grace.
Just the part you want to talk about.
Okay. I started my career at Plymouth Congregational United Church of Christ under the leadership of Pastor Nicholas, now the Honorable Reverend Dr. Pastor Nicholas Hood III, in 1985. And it was an incredible time at Plymouth, a great learning experience. Had a pretty nice supervision. Steered me as best as he could, being the kind of person that I am, in the direction that.
That's a key phrase she just said, as best as I could.
And here we are 34 years later.
But tell us what you did after you left Plymouth.
Okay, after I left Plymouth, I went to Cleveland, Ohio, to the one of the area conference offices, and served as their first association minister there in the Western Reserve Association, just outside of Cleveland, Ohio. And that was an administrative position that I found very interesting because I liked administrative work. After that, I was the first African American woman to pastor Mayflower United Church of Christ.
In Detroit.
In Detroit, yes. And I believe
San Juan and Curtis.
San Juan and Curtis, that's right. I think it's 7301 Curtis Avenue, and that has certainly been both of those assignments were good in terms of the foundation that I had already received at Plymouth, in terms of public presence, in terms of preaching skills, administrative skills, Christian education skills. All of those skill sets became foundational to me going to Cleveland, Ohio, and then to Mayflower as the senior minister, where we did very well. I often brag about the fact that we were able to attract Ayanna Van Zant to be our Women's Day speaker in September of 1997. That was one of our accomplishments, and also under the leadership of Reverend, what's the pastor's name at Hartford? Probably retired now.
Dr. Adams.
Dr. Adams.
Charles Adams.
Dr. Charles Adams at that time had a Head Start program. That was the second thing that we brought to Mayflower Congregational United Church of Christ. And we were also able to do a Teen AIDS Summit at the church, and we have what we call now a wall of pastors. Everyone that pastored from the beginning up to the current pastor, our photo is on one side and the moderator's photo are on the other side. The fourth thing that we did was to name our chapel after one of the former pastors, the Reverend Dr. Henry T. Simmons. So we were able to do some innovation there. At Plymouth, I introduced foot washing services, as I had introduced at the Howard University School of Divinity, where I was the senior class president, and also the Andrew Rankin Memorial Chapel graduate assistant under the leadership of the late Dean Evans E. Crawford.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then when did you go to Space for Grace?
Space for Grace is.
Or were you ever at Mount Zion?
No.
You were not at Mount Zion in
only as a member.
Okay.
Yes, as a member, while I served as the area association minister, associate association minister.
Okay.
Under the late Bob Stroman.
So tell us your new ministry called Space for Grace.
Space for Grace Without Walls United Church of Christ. My godson and I gave birth to that. The late Oliver W. Martin III gave birth to Space for Grace in February of 2014. And it has morphed since his death into a ministry for veterans. Primarily because I am a retired U.S. Navy chaplain, and I have my own post-traumatic stress disorders, and the agenda, I should say the mission, and maybe even the vision of Space for Grace Without Walls, United Church of Christ, is to reduce the number of deaths by suicide among veterans. As a matter of fact, I was sharing with Pastor Hood the earlier part of the evening that we received a grant from the Michigan Conference Covenant Association of the United Church of Christ to launch a program that we are calling The Veteran in Our Pew. because many of us are suffering silently, so to speak, and we have PTSD issues, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder concerns, that we would love for our pastors to be aware of. It is also my hope to run up the flagpole of the United Church of Christ to the national level of the church, that we declare the fourth Sunday in February as Veterans Appreciation Sunday, so that pastors will have an opportunity, in addition to November the 11th, Veterans Day, and the weekend of Memorial Day weekend, to have a word for veterans, to have a word of encouragement, a word of hope, and also have programs there in the church, support groups there at the church, if veterans are interested in talking about their experiences, and having some sessions. I use mindfulness and meditation on what I call soul fitness affirming coach. And because we all need affirmation, we all need, to be thanked by our pastors in particular, for the service that we have done. We know what we're signing up for when we sign up. I don't think any of us expected to go to war. I know I didn't expect to go to war. And the aftermath of all of that. And often when we go to our VA centers, the agenda is to write another prescription, when in fact what we really need is a buddy system within our local congregations, a veteran to veteran kind of a buddy system. We don't need another prescription. We need, in my opinion, to be understood, to be heard, and to be seen. Not to look past, but to really look at us eyeball to eyeball and see us as human beings, seeing us as people with souls who happen to have served in a war machine. So all of that is coming out of the creation of Space for Grace Without Walls. It's a slow process. It's a tedious process, but it is worth it, because I know that there are veterans in congregations that are hurting, and would love to have programs within our congregation from which we can be reunited with family, because it is a strong family.
Mm-hmm. Reverend Anderson, thank you for sharing with me. Sounds like you're off and running in a very important realm of ministry. I want to turn the microphone now to Denise Goodrich, and what I'd like you to do, Pamela, this is corn pone. I'm actually, I don't have enough microphones, so Pamela, can you just take the top part,
Okay.
and give that to Denise Goodrich?
All right.
And as I said, I kind of married into Denise Goodrich's extended family. My wife and Denise were childhood friends, and they've maintained a friendship all these years. And for the last several years, you went to divinity school, and then were you ordained?
No, I was not ordained.
Okay, but you have become a chaplain.
I serve as a hospice chaplain. I've been
So tell us about that. What's involved in being a hospice chaplain?
Well, first of all, I have to go for the preparation. And in my first life, I was an elementary school teacher. And I took that little teaching degree after teaching in Columbus. I went overseas and taught in Kuwait and in South Korea and saw much of the world. And I believe that all of that was kind of a preparation for the work that I was to later on go on to do. When I came back to the States, I then passed myself off as a health educator at a federally qualified health center. And then I worked for the state, then went to seminary. And when I came out, I had an opportunity to work in middle management at a nonprofit. And I hated it, and brought me to one of those crossroads where, Lord, I can't see myself retiring from this work. Show me what to do. And I ended up volunteering, going through volunteer training at a hospice. Earlier in my path, when I was overseas, my path had crossed with a man who had, a friend who had attracted the HIV virus, and it was through him that I was exposed to the hospice movement and always had great respect for what I saw there. And so, lo and behold, here came an opportunity to prepare once again and taking clinical pastoral education and then parlaying it into a job. So as a hospice chaplain, I'm able to assist patients and their family members in that final chapter of life. And I love, Reverend Pamela, how you talk about the veterans. Some of my fondest memories are being able to assist some of the veteran families. And a lot of the patients we deal with have dementia, but I have seen some of the guys just some little spark come alive when that volunteer comes through for veterans pinning. And even in a demented state, they will often snap, sit up straight forward and salute. And it is just amazing to me. But something even more important, as you say, just the soul injury
Yes.
that comes from war. And many of our patients, they don't often open up and respond, but they will to another veteran, and to be able to provide a volunteer that they can even walk this final chapter with. And sometimes even when we talk about pain meds and PTSD and how that expresses at the end of life, being able to know that sometimes it's not the meds that are even going to assist in bringing that soul comfort, but I am honored and privileged to walk with family members and patients through that last chapter. And I often say that it's much like we labor to bring life into this realm. In hospice, we are just part of assisting in that laboring process of helping that soul move on to the next realm. And it's something that I feel very privileged to be a part of, and I thank you for the opportunity to share about it.
So, for both of you have served as chaplains. Pamela, I assume you still have that designation if you want to
Yes, absolutely.
go into it in an active way. Just briefly for our viewership, if there's somebody looking at this video now who's thinking, well, I've listened to these two women talk about being a chaplain, one in the military, one in the hospice. What encouragement would you give them? Somebody who's thinking about maybe they might want to pursue being a chaplain.
I would say find a facility that has a clinical pastoral education. They usually offer 4 units. That first one is kind of the opening, and try it and see if you like it.
Pamela,
Excellent.
any last advice on that?
Well, I would also recommend that the person take a good close examination of themselves, because if you're not partially whole, on your way to complete wholeness because of your vertical relationship, then the horizontal relationship might be just a little bit rocky, because we are dealing with issues of death, which is something we don't normally talk about unless we're at a funeral. So to help a person die, you have to know that, okay, one of these days, as you said in your sermon, or in your closing prayer today, one of these days we're going to die. Am I ready to die? If I'm ready to die, I'm ready to live. Then I can help this person get ready to say their goodbyes to the things which I find so fascinating in your prayer, to the things that we have come to love, and that has been so endearing. Just separating from that is a part of the grieving process, and being at peace as to what's going to happen to my family, and understanding that what we call a survivor's grief. So that can be resolved, that you survived because there was something else for you to do. before this point, before this last chapter in life. So I think that internal work is also important, and CPE will help you with that. Help you greatly with self-awareness, which was something I didn't have until, and that's why I was always sucking on a stick of dynamite, because I didn't know that that's what I was doing. And that's what clinical pastoral education residency or one unit will help you get a grip on your own humanity and your own immortality. So that would be my advice, that you do some of the internal work.
Okay, well listen, I want to thank Reverend Dr. Pamela Anderson and the Reverend Denise Goodrich. I thank you for allowing me to interview you today.
Thank you for
And I hope this won't be the last time. All right. Well, God bless. And to those watching, this is Pastor Nick Hood, pastor and senior minister of the Plymouth United Church of Christ, located in the heart of Detroit, the very tip top of the medical center area of Detroit. And if you're without a church home, stop by. We're located at 600 East Warren Avenue. We worship on Sundays at 8:30 and 11, Wednesdays at noon. Until tomorrow, the next time, God bless. And remember, I'm praying for you.